Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about Djeli Clark's novella, The Black God's Drums. So this is the second of Clark's books that I've read, and he's so fucking good. So this is a steampunk / fantasy novella. It is set in 1871 New Orleans, but this is a New Orleans in a very different type of world. The Civil War went very differently in this world than it did in actual history, and so the U.S. is sort of broken up. You have the Confederacy, but then you also have you have the Union and you have the Confederacy. But you also have sections like California seems to be owned by Russians, and New Orleans is a free city. So it is not part of the Confederacy, even though historically New Orleans was. It was occupied by the Union, I think in 1862, and then continually for the rest of the Civil War. But in this version, New Orleans is a free city because the British, French, and the Free Isles, which is a sort of amalgamation, maybe a nation state, but maybe more like a confederation of Caribbean islands. They all basically work together. The British, French, and the Free Isles, they work together to basically say, all right, war is over, you're done, game over. So this takes place in the free city of New Orleans. Our protagonist, who I'm assuming is meant to be depicted here on the cover, is named Creeper. Her nickname is Creeper, really. She is a street kid who has a deep connection to the goddess Oya. Oya is a Yoruba / syncretic deity. So among Yoruba mythology, but also in some other West African traditions, Oya, Oshun, and Shango are the three sort of big deities that show up here. These are common deities in several West African religions, primarily Yoruba mythology, but then they get carried over into voodoo and hoodoo in the Western Hemisphere as slaves from West Africa are brought, and then those traditions combine with particularly Catholicism and some indigenous religious beliefs, and they get sort of mutated through slavery, etc., etc. So Oya is a deity of the wind and air. Oshun is a deity of water, particularly, I think Oshun is particularly associated with the ocean in West African religion, but I think maybe more with rivers in syncretic religions like voodoo, hoodoo, Santeria, things like that. I'm not 100% sure. We also get brief mention of Yemoja as a sort of mother deity to these other two. Yemoja in West African religions is a river deity, and I think she gets associated with the oceans in Caribbean and New Orleans voodoo and hoodoo. Anyway, so the reason and then there's Shango. Shango is a god of thunder. He's a war god as well. So the reason that this is important, Creeper has this sort of internal connection with Oya, and Marie, who is an airship captain slash smuggler slash just badass superhero, has a similar connection with Oshun, which she has just resisted accepting. So that becomes important. But toward the beginning, Creeper is sort of given this vision by Oya of a white skull rising over New Orleans and threatening to destroy the city. And she doesn't initially know what this means. Things start to fall into place a little bit when she overhears a group of Confederate soldiers meeting with a Creole, who's going to deliver them a Haitian scientist. Now, the reason that's significant is because the Haitians, or the Free Isles, have a weapon called the Black God's drums. And that's what the Confederates want so that they can use it against the U.S. to finally sort of win the Civil War. The Black God's drums, also called Shango's Thunder, is an incredibly powerful weapon. Basically, it is a particular way of like firing cannon into the sky so that it creates massive, devastating storms. Storms effectively run by Shango, Oya, Oshun, Yamoja, and these different deities. What we find out is that the Black God's drums was used once by the Haitians. During the Haitian Revolution, when Napoleon sent a fleet to try and reconquer the island, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who was one of the leaders of the Haitian Revolution, the second president of Haiti after Toussaint Louverture, Dessalines agreed to use the Black God's drums, and it devastated the French fleet, just completely wiped them out. But then it turned on Haiti itself, and it devastated the island as well. So it's an incredibly powerful but unpredictable weapon. And what Anne-Marie says in this bit here, because there's a number of places where this is discussed, but she said, the old people in Haiti say when the Black God's drums loose again, Papa Toussaint going to rise from the sea and lead an army to conquer of Jumbi to conquer the whole world. So basically the idea is if the Black God's drums is used again, the victims of the first time it was used would basically rise from the depths of the ocean where they had been swallowed up and would take over the world. The Confederates apparently are not that concerned about this prophecy because they plan to take this Haitian scientist and get him to make the Black God's drums for them to use on the Union. But their plan is thwarted in that they are all gunned down in the streets. And instead, the Haitian scientist is snatched by a group of Genoux. They are ex-Confederates. They were Confederates from New Orleans or the surrounding areas who felt that the Confederacy betrayed them when it signed the peace treaty that allowed New Orleans to stand as a free city, rather than attempting to retake New Orleans for the Confederacy. So the Genoux basically went out into the swamps and continued a kind of guerrilla war to either recapture or destroy New Orleans. They have thus far not been successful, but they snatched this Haitian scientist to get him to make the Black God's drums, Shango's thunder, so that they can use it to destroy New Orleans. And Creeper and Anne-Marie and the rest of the crew of this airship have to stop them. They're pointed in the right direction by these two nuns who seem to have all of the knowledge, like literally all of the information, and to be like science whizzes and stuff. And they are led out by Feral, who is a sort of swamp girl who just basically does what it says on the tin. Like she is a feral child, basically, who has grown up in the swamps, but now she basically works for these two nuns. And she leads them out to the Jeannot camp. The Jeannot are in the process of building the Black God's drums so that they can destroy New Orleans. And Anne-Marie and Creeper put their plan into action. They get the Haitian scientist. They're about to start making off with him, and he's like, "No, I can't go without my jewel." And they're like, "We don't need jewels. That's not important." And he's like, "No, it's my daughter." Oh, the Confederates and then the Jeannot have been holding his daughter hostage, and that's why he betrayed Haiti to build this potentially devastating weapon for first the Confederates and then the Jeannot. So they have to go and get the daughter, which they managed to successfully do, but one of the Jeannot, this guy who's like super tough, and he's got this pouch that like shields him from divine medicine, or from divine magic and things like this. Like, he poses a serious problem for them. And he manages to deploy the Black God's drums. And so New Orleans is about to get just crushed by this storm when Reaper is like, "All right, Oya, now is the time. I really need your assistance." And so Oya, basically Creeper like gives herself over to Oya, and Oya is going to attempt to control these winds, to dissipate Shango's thunder. However, Oshun doesn't seem that keen on that idea because Creeper is sort of swallowed up by the waters of the swamp. And it's only when Anne-Marie gives herself over to Oshun that the waters sort of lift Creeper back up, and she's able to use Oya's power to dissipate the storm. The two of them working together, Oya and Oshun, in the bodies of Creeper and Anne-Marie, are able to dissipate this storm so that New Orleans is not destroyed. It's a really, really cool book. And some of the things that I like about this book are the same kinds of things that I liked about The Master of Jinn, which is the other of Clark's books I've read so far. The fact that we have a female protagonist, I think, is really good. There is a decent amount of steampunk, to be fair, that uses female protagonists, so that's not incredibly unique, but it is still definitely, I think, a good thing, because so much science fiction has been built around male protagonists. Star Trek, Star Wars, Firefly. So many of these science fiction things, science fiction franchises, science fiction stories, etc., are built around male protagonists. I like having a female protagonist. I think it's a good thing to do. And in this case, we have an African American protagonist. She's African American with very strong connections to Caribbean and West African mysticism. I think it's a great element in terms of diversifying what genres like steampunk, science fiction, speculative fiction, and fantasy can all do. Um, because, I mean, so much steampunk is either white Americans or uh, Northern Europeans, particularly British, and that's fine, but it also very much limits what the genre can do. So writers like Clark, I absolutely adore. Um, there's also just the fact that I'm really fascinated by West African cultures and Caribbean sort of syncretic religion and things like this, Caribbean culture. So for me, it's really, really rewarding just to get that sort of broadening of what's possible in a steampunk, sci fi, speculative fiction universe.